brand. Not that cheap anymore, which is annoying. Everything's a rip-off, but still. And I ain't one to defend the Russians or Vladimir Putin, but to find this was but the claim this was entirely Putin's fault. Whoa! It's something that I don't believe. I don't buy that. Like, sure, Putin invading Ukraine probably had something to do with this, but I suspect there's more to the story, and what actually happened was free market capitalism became out of control. Putin trying to impress the Russians, launch an invasion of Ukraine. The invasion encountered more resistance than expected. Putin, being one to be seen as a strong leader, didn't want to back down. The world's economy basically went tits up, and we're where we are now. It wasn't just Putin that's why I have to pay so much. Multiple factors. History appears to be repeating itself. Like in Germany, the Great Depression is what led directly to the rise of Nazism, which is what led to what happened, basically. You know what? It wasn't purely the Great Depression, it was multiple factors, but still, I'm oversimplifying history. Like, let's not go too much, you know. Anyway, hello, one viewer. So I didn't manage to get any auditing today, but I'm intending, hopefully, at some point to go visit Cambridge. Yeah, remember Auditing Britain went to Cambridge, I think. And wasn't him that got pushed by Eitan Joseph and ended up having a bit of a confrontation, which a drunk guy actually stuck up for him. Shout out to Eitan Joseph. Last time a drunk man was speaking to Eitan Joseph, it was to tell him to F off. Won't say it on video, just in case there's kids watching. Not that kids should be watching the channel without adults having viewed the video first. Because some of them do contain the occasional F-bomb. But because it's just what is the content of film. Yeah, I'll start trying to mark those NSFW. That's not safe work. I don't guarantee anything, frankly, because of the very nature of my content. It's pretty much any video can contain pretty much anything, but still, may as well. I've decided instead of going out. God, I can't believe it was so silly to have my dessert, how can I put it, sweet food that I bought from Morrison's, some chocolatey cornflakes I bought. I buy this ready-made mug. Anyway, on the move, I should have taken them home. But anyway, I've got to eat this. I should have gone to Morrison's, browsed, found nothing good, said hello to my friend Vanessa, and on the way, but still. Yeah, shout out to Vanessa is all I'll say. I won't say anything more about her. But yeah. Like, if someone could... donate down in the description below, I think it is anyway. Of course, if the link doesn't work, contact me directly. Someone could help me with some money for filming every police station in the country, I'll do it. Obviously, what I've learned is obviously don't rock the boat too much. Like, if it's... Like, what I've learned is if the battle is over name and address, but it's a non-imprisonable offence you refuse, or you get arrested, like, I'm really not going to bother getting myself arrested for the sake of something silly like a non-imprisonable offence. So next time police try and demand details on Section 50, I'll sod it. Like, I have the right to give my name and address, Section 50 or not. May as well just exercise the right, get it done with. Like, you also have the right, if the request isn't lawful to refuse, but it just isn't worth, in my view, going down that route. Controversial position, I know. The fact is, Section 50 isn't even an imprisonable offence. It's not much worth fighting over. For the sake of a fine, if you refuse and get convicted, it's just not worth fighting over. Especially given that, knowing the police, if you refuse your name and address under Section 50, what will end up happening, as has happened with me in the past, is they go applying to magistrates for something called a criminal behaviour order. Breach that and it's 5 years in Crown Court. And believe me, if you plead guilty to breach it in the magistrates court, no matter what you do, it could end up getting sentenced in Crown Court. And because magistrates are easily impressed by all sorts of BS, the police may just can't be bothered to fight too much anymore. I'm becoming a bit like a lawyer. Like, I am willing to somewhat make a point, but if my action isn't even that disruptive to the police anyway, I'm not going to bother sticking my neck out too much over something as silly as the name for the sake of the name and address. That said, I'm willing to consider, no, I won't even go into that. All I will say is to support Palestine action. Anyway, the parents' house in front of them, I've got to be careful what I say in front of them anyway. Anyway, this is enjoyable. Lemonade and orange juice. Who needs a club? Shout out to the this isn't me telling you who to insure your car with. It just happens to be, it's called the Adrian Flux Waterfront, as in the insurance company Adrian Flux. Shout out to them, they're an excellent venue. Yes, they didn't let me in, but hopefully, if and when I decide to come back, they'll decide to be more tolerant and let me in. Like, they are the only premises in Norwich for nighttime visits. After 1 o'clock anyway, it's worth visiting. Like, all the other venues have their problems and make them not worth visiting. Even Loft, which apparently used to be a nice gay bar, now it's just turned into a nice straight bar. Nice for straight people, i.e., to be more precise, no, not straight people, wrong way of putting it. Nice for people who are not LGBT, i.e. cis-het people, i.e. cisgender heterosexuals. Not so nice for LGBT people. It just happens to have a gay flag on it, which is basically a con. Pardon me, sorry about that. Anyway, like, imagine that wrong way of running a business. Run a business that only appeals to and only meets the needs of straight people and put a gay flag on it. Like, really? Like, it reminds me, once I was in a charity shop volunteering for a trial shift with, shout out to Regina from a charity shop in Wyndham, whichever one it is. Odd name. I couldn't help but joke, if Regina ever found so in dispute with someone, might end up taking them to court. Then it'd be Regina versus her opponent, get it? Oh my god, it'd be just like when you end up in criminal court. And you didn't get the joke. But yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know I look like a bloke without my makeup. But yeah, oh, thanks, buffoon. Shout out to the buffoon of my father. Anyway. Anyway, stand by my point. One does not simply take a business that appeals to straight people, is designed for the needs of straight people, and should really be marketed to straight people, and try and market it to LGBT people simply by putting a gay flag on it. That's like taking a vehicle that's designed for use in the UK, has everything customised and specified for use on UK roads, including the headlights, which are particularly safety critical, and just driving and expecting to drive your vehicle on the roads of France, Benelux, Spain, or wherever on the continent without making the necessary regulatory modifications to the car and the equipment you carry in on it. Like, for example, you're driving in France and say, for a start, you will need to change the way your headlights work. Like on the ferry, you can find an adapter in the duty-free shop, so you have no excuse for not buying that adapter and fitting it at the earliest possible opportunity. Ideally, as soon as you can get down to the car deck, you want to get that adapter, rush to your car and fit it ASAP. In fact, really, you should really not even leave it that late. Really, if you're planning on driving your vehicle onto a ferry to France, or even if it's a last-minute trip, you should arrive at the port in plenty of time to go to the shop at the port, if available, buy the adapter and fit it to your car before you even get on the ferry, ideally. No excuses. I'm not sure if the procedure is before you get on the ferry, but anyway, at the earliest possible opportunity. Well, I don't know. I'm not giving you anyone advice on what you should do and shouldn't do when travelling to the continent. My advice is speak with someone more specialist. Like a good starting point would be your ferry company, or if you're travelling by Channel Tunnel, with Channel Tunnel, they may be able to tell you where to go to on that. But of course, this is beyond the scope of this YouTube channel anyway. I'm not a travel helpline or travel agent or lawyer. But yeah, it's a somewhat imperfect analogy, but you get the point. You can't just take a car that is designed and specified for driving on UK road, just drive on the continent with a sticker saying France or Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Spain, whatever, and expect not to get pulled over and get into a bit of trouble potentially. Even if you officially change the number plates, leave everything else the same. If, let's say, French law requires a high-vis jacket, fire extinguisher and breathalyzer, which I'm not sure about French law, again, outside the scope of this channel, I'm not really sure. If you've done those things in the vehicle, even some but not all those things, you can expect at minimum a ticket from the police. OJ Lemonade and the Splash of Lime Cordial is one. Thanks, that. First time seeing you, also from Norfolk, have you transition? I'd say yes. Can you get any good bud? I'm in Lynn. Listen, mate, I'm not a drug dealer. If you're going to do drugs, I'm not here to tell you what to do or what not to do. What I'm going to say is I don't endorse the use of illegal drugs, and I'm going to prove that I don't endorse the use of illegal drugs by simply not talking about that shit. In fact, I don't even have to say that I don't endorse their use. As someone said to me on the Discord once, you can simply prove it by simply not talking about that shit. Not on this Discord anyway, someone said. Say my YouTube channel, I'm not going to talk about that shit. Not on this channel anyway. That's it. Anyway, word to mother, you're in Lynn. How are you? How are things in King's Lynn? Yeah, King's Lynn reminds me of the place where the barn beyond there ejected me for being drunk. I'm going to speak to a lawyer, I think, because I don't think I was really kicked out for being drunk. There are people 10 times as drunk as me in there. I think they kicked me out for being trans. I think that's what got me kicked out, which is wrong. Like Stevie Wonder wrote a song on apartheid about how it's wrong regarding the white-black divide in South Africa. The cis-trans divide is the same kind of thing, in my view. Sure, people say I'm bringing up politics unnecessary. Sure, people accuse me of being inflammatory. But in the end of the day, rights are rights. Refusal to respect trans rights is slippery road to not respecting human rights. And before you know, if the government is allowed to steamroll over our rights, which hopefully the democratic process will never allow, it's slippery slope to get hooked on harder and more dangerous forms of tyranny. Before you know, they're issuing death warrants for the most trivial of offences. and we end up under de facto martial law at the very least, if not that. Even if they don't go that far, they might go as far as saying, all right, we won't be issuing death warrants, but we will be issuing civil committal to prison warrants, and you get civil committal to prison with someone that under the current criminal justice, or even civil justice system with more compassion and reasonableness, would not end that way. Like my mum said about the breach of bail under Bail Act 1976, she said it was wrong the way in which they very summarily, very quickly put me before a Crown Court judge. Bugger. Before Crown Court judge, and before I know, she gets the phone ring when someone called Stephen Webster, shout out to Stephen from Norwich Magistrates Court, who just happened to be off in terms of having to do any magistrates work, and was therefore excused from the Magistrates Court and was allowed to go and sit and watch a case in the Crown Court when he chose mine, because he knows me. He knows I have issues, and therefore, being very compassionate, he did the right thing and chose to be there to support me in what was the final hour before I got sent to prison. And you shout out to Stephen, he's an excellent person. He's the kind of healthcare professional you need. Like, whenever mistakes have happened on his watch, they've never been his fault. Like, always, it's the system that cocked up. Always. Never him individually. But yeah, remember he was there in court and he saw the judge do what he did and sign my committal to prison. He was the person who ended up phoning my mum to let her know at the time he is in prison. As back then, that was before I came out of the closet as trans, and started really transitioning to anything really. Back then was covertly non-binary, presented as male, is now in prison. That was very quick, she commented. The process was from the way I described it. What? Yes. What do you mean? Okay, I'll edit it afterwards, Yoppie, but can you please not get into the discussion on this? Okay, thanks. Okay, good night. Yeah, shout out to Stephen anyway. Well, I'll need to confirm or deny if that was really his real surname. But anyway, I used to make videos saying police. Of course, Sam, I made a few at the police station. Yeah, Barn Beyond is still basic kicking, and what you didn't add, taking the Michael about how to behave. Like, really, like they're meant to be in the business. They're supposed to be in the business of providing good quality hospitality to everyone, whereas in reality, Barn Beyond are in the business of only providing good quality hospitality to those who they feel deserve it. Anyone doesn't fit within the privileged class of people they want to serve, i.e. white, cis, gender, heterosexual, mainstream, everything, non-disabled. Anyone doesn't fit into that particular category, or if disabled, at least the right kind of disabled, i.e., physically disabled, and that's it for wheelchair crutches or whatever, acceptable. But anyone who's invisibly disabled or disabled in the wrong way, one kind of race, one kind of gender identity, one kind of sexuality, whatever, they get discriminated against. One kind of religion, whatever, they appear to be discriminated against. Which is wrong. But what I will say is what happened was Stephen then picked up the phone on his work mobile and let my mum know what had happened. And before you know, it happened. I was already downstairs and from there onto a Serco van, which incidentally didn't even go onto at the pick. I was put onto in the back of a police car at the pick, and from there onto a Serco van along the other blokes going to jail, and straight into HMP Norwich. Straight there. Mum commented, Yoki I call her, that this is a bit too summary. Well, I'll explain. Well, it's not technically classed as a criminal matter. Unfortunately, the law regards breaching bail conditions as a civil thing. You can still get dealt with by magistrates, so even the Crown Court judge, if you happen to be unlucky enough to breach your bail within 24 working hours, i.e. defined as not including certain days, which are not classed as working days, or one working day, i.e. is defined as not including certain days like Sundays, which do not count as working days for that purpose. If you have been misfortune into one working day of a Crown Court hearing already arranged, instead of being put before magistrates, will be put before Crown Court. The Crown Court themselves will then deal with the breach of bail in-house. Contrary to the myth I'd encountered from detention officer at the investigation, so I said, "Oh, you'll go to Mags first," implying, since the Mags is meant to be a remand court, I'd be dealt with leniently. Because magistrates like that. No, straight to Crown Court, at which point you encounter the wrath of the Crown Court judge if he finds you or you admit a breach of bail conditions. It's just how it is. I'm not saying the system is right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not here to present a prosecution or defence case in relation to the system. I'm just here to outline how it is. But yeah, because breach of bail is a civil matter, they only need to be of the opinion of breach of bail conditions. If you're in such a situation, you're basically out of luck. But yeah, I want to go and do a Parkside Police Station in Cambridge tomorrow. But anyway, I've had my drinks now. What I think I'll do is I'll do a little bit of washing up and drying up. Then I'll come and see you afterwards if I want to do any more filming. Or more likely, I'm going to wrap this up for the night, I think. So thank you and goodbye. Can't have too much content. At the end of the day, I've got to really prioritise quality over too much quantity. Thanks and good night.